Hey guys, so Tank Davis knocks out Frank Martin with a beautiful straight left or a left hook in the eighth round, and it was just an amazing performance by Tank. I mean, what can you say about Tank Davis? There's not a lot of bad things you could say about the guy. You could say plenty of bad things about outside of the ring, but the guy is just a phenomenal fighter. And this is coming from somebody who didn't like Tank Davis. Like I would say probably like six years ago or so. Like I didn't like him when he was coming up, and everybody said he was a very special talent, and he could be the next coming of Floyd Mayweather and all that stuff. I didn't like people saying that, and I just didn't. There was so much I just didn't like the guy. I guess I didn't like him outside of the ring, and at that time, like I was kind of just finding ways to root against him. I would always think he's going to win every single fight he's in, but I would always root for him to lose. Kind of like the way that people used to watch Floyd Mayweather just to root for him to lose, but didn't sit there and admire the pure talent that was going on in the ring. That's what I did with Tank Davis in the early stages of his career. But the last like 5 or 6 years, like I've really come around on him, and I've really believed that like I used to lump him in with like one punch knockout artist, almost like not on the level of like Deontay Wilder, like that one dimensional. But I used to lump him in with guys like that and just say like, eventually when you get up to a certain level, that pure knockout shit don't work, and it doesn't for 90 something percent of those knockout artists. When you get up to the top level, a guy who just stays away from you for 36 minutes and steals 11 rounds from you and just demolishes you and you get exposed. That's what happens with a lot of those knockout artists. Tank is not that guy. Tank has proven, over, especially over his last few fights, like he's not losing rounds. And that's what I used to say about him earlier in his career. Like he's losing these rounds. Even Pedraza, he kind of struggled with, even though he was young back then, he kind of struggled with him. But like he's not losing these rounds. He's giving them away. He's giving them away. What he did last night was it's just fucking brilliant that he made Frank Martin work for the first 4 or 5 rounds. Frank Martin had to work so hard to do so little. And at that time, Tank's not even trying to win those rounds. He's not trying to do anything. And Frank Martin, not only are you having to work so hard, you're also having to fight the whole time off your back foot, and you're having to worry about like, because Tank is just the guy to sit there and be like, I'm gonna come forward. I'm in a good defensive position, so you're not gonna knock me out. Go ahead and throw. Go ahead and throw. And eventually, somebody has to be like, well, somebody's got to do something here. I got to throw punches. When you throw punches, like Tank's reading that. He's gauging the distance the whole fight. He's getting your speed down. He's calculating all this stuff in his head to eventually knock you out. And that's what he does in every single fight. Do we know if it's going to work against the top guys? We don't know for sure. But I'm telling you, there's not a guy on this planet other than maybe Shakur Stevenson that I would favor over Tank Davis. And it's a maybe. But no other fighter on the planet I would take against Tank, because I think Tank could do what he did last night to every other guy in the 135-pound division. Like I said, maybe without Shakur Stevenson, but all these guys that are coming up, like Raymond Muratella would be an interesting fight. William Zepeda would be an interesting fight, but those guys are getting knocked the fuck out within 12 rounds. I'm just saying it right now. Like they're great fighters, but their type of style is not going to beat a guy like Tank. He's so difficult to beat because usually guys who are that offensive minded, he walks people down, he's got the one punch KO. Usually they got a lot of holes in their defense. Tank has hardly any holes in his defense. Whenever he gets hit or he gets backed up, he's choosing to do all that. I've come to realize that with him. And he did it all night last night. He was in control from the beginning of the bell in that fight. You had to give rounds to Frank Martin in there because he's the only one doing something. But all that, it's getting Frank Martin comfortable. Like, I can't tell you how many times Tank would walk him down, and he'd walk him down, back him into the corner, back him up against the ropes, and then not do anything. He didn't do anything for like the first 4 or 5 rounds. And I'm just like, man, he's doing this so much. He's getting Frank comfortable in there. And eventually Frank's going to go up against the ropes because he's like, hey, I've been here all night and he hasn't done anything. And then the 8th round comes and you get hit with one punch and fight's over. That's how smart Tank Davis is. And that's just one way that Tank could have won that fight. Tank at any time in that fight could have went on the front foot and let his hands go and knocked out Frank Martin at any time. But he's constantly, you could tell he's constantly calculating like a risk reward in his head. Whenever he throws, anytime you throw, you're leaving yourself open. But Tank knows that, look, there's a good chance that I can land my bomb, and there's a very, very low chance that he's going to hit me with anything that's going to knock me out. So when he wants to knock people out, it's all under a calculated decision. And that's why, like, I don't know who the hell's going to beat this guy, because Tank is up there with everybody else in the world right now. I'm not going to argue with anybody who tells me that Tank Davis is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, because the argument is there. I don't like people that mention, like, accomplishment. I'm going by a pure eye test. When I talk about pound-for-pound fighters, you can pick apart anybody's resume and say there's weak fighters on there or whatever. Tank does not have a very strong resume when you're talking about all-time greats or, the best fighter in the world right now. You know who else doesn't? Terrence Crawford. Nobody seems to care that he doesn't have a lot of names on his resume either. Because I would argue that Tank might have a better resume than Crawford if you take off, Errol Spence. But, I mean, there's just, I don't know who the hell's going to beat Tank Davis, especially in 135. And, I mean, if you got a couple of names out there, feel free to throw them in the comment section. But, I mean, there's one name, and that's Shakur Stevenson, who I think stands a chance. Everybody else in that division, I would take Tank Davis at about at least a 5-1 favorite over everybody else in that division. But, I mean, like I said, Frank Martin, he did what he could all night. But, I mean, Tank's just so smart in there. Tank, Frank Martin followed his only path to victory, and that was to stick and move the whole fight. But you got to do it for 36 minutes, and that's a long fucking time. And eventually Tank's going to catch it. You can't just hop into survival mode and beat him. But, on the other hand, like, that's all he could do. What else do you want him to do? Walk forward? Or when Tank walks him down, stand there and hold his ground and just get knocked out in the middle of the ring instead of against the ropes? Either way, we all knew what was coming. So, yeah, just an amazing performance by Tank. And, I mean, like I said, I just have a bunch of, like, 1A, 1B, 1C. When it comes to the best fighters in the world, I got Inoue, Crawford, Usyk. Tank Davis is up there. I don't care about he's not nearly as accomplished as all those guys, but, like, he's up there. He's in the conversation just because of his skill. And I do not like Tank Davis as a person. I used to hate him as a boxer, but, like, you can't deny what you're seeing in that ring. And it's not a mistake. These KOs are not like landing like one punch KOs, but there's a lot of holes in your game. Like, it's not like that. And David Benavidez is the same way. I used to hate that guy. I couldn't understand people when they told me that he'd be able to beat Canelo. I get it now. I get it. I would still pick Canelo over him, but, like, I get why people are saying that. And he's just on the level of Canelo, if not above that level. So, like, just thank God the two of them, showed up for the sport of boxing, because there was a couple of guys last night who lost their their careers are pretty much done, and that's Subriel Matisse and Gary Russell. Gary Russell, people were so high on him, and I don't understand why those are knockout artists who I don't like to give as much respect to. Gary Russell and Subriel Matisse. They both got exposed last night against decent fighters, but not A-level fighters. They both got exposed last night because they're too one-dimensional. If they can't knock guys out, they can't win They can't win enough rounds to win a fight. Like Subriel Matisse, there's so many defensive holes in that guy's game, and he doesn't have a lot of offensive tools. He has power, and he's a tough guy. Well, all that's going to do when you get up to the top level is take a beating for 12 rounds. That's what's going to happen to that guy if he steps in against. People were laughing at me when I told them, like, Teofimo Lopez would knock Sabrel Matisse out, or at least outpoint him by a wide decision. So would Devin Haney. Devin Haney would outbox Matisse for 12 rounds, and Matisse might not win a round in there. Like, these guys got exposed last night, and this was supposed to be a showcase for all these guys. It was a huge night of boxing, and those two guys failed. And guys like Benavidez, he did, you know, he not only like excelled, like he did more than I thought he was going to do against Gosvick. He looked very good in that fight. Tank Davis, same thing. We all knew he was going to win the fight, but how do you do it? Do you control the whole fight? Do you not take any damage whatsoever against a guy like Frank Martin? And that's what he did. So I'm very happy, they showed up for the sport of boxing because there was a lot of eyes on the sport last night, and I'm glad, Tank came through. So let me know in the comment section who you think Tank should fight next, and who you think would win in a fight between Tank and Shakur Stevenson. Same with Benavidez. Where do you think he goes next? And do you still think he can beat Canelo after that performance? Because the only thing I'll say about David Benavidez, like, I don't like him going up in weight and then trying to come back down. Like, that's not a good thing with his body frame. I didn't mind it when Canelo did it because Canelo shouldn't even be at 168 in my opinion. He should be a 160 pounder. But at 168, he's right. But when he went up to 175, it's not very hard for him to come back down to 168. Benavidez could be a solid 175er. He could easily go up and win the cruiserweight title. Like, you don't think Benavidez could be Chris Billum-Smith, who, by the way, scored a big win last night too. But yeah, it was a great night, great day for boxing and everything. But yeah, let me know what you guys think.